ready for number 4?
Me.
Okay.
Oh, me.
Number 4, and guys, this is all stuff that you've heard before. This is kind of just like, this is what to do in a situation, right? The fourth thing is to be aware of your non-serving bound nature reactions. Okay,
Yeah,
now what do I mean by that? That's kind of all encompassing, right? We all have behavioral patterns that we go into when we're in a state of negative emotion. Okay,
Yep.
so in order to be aware of them and then not act from them, you obviously have to observe yourself or learn from the person who you're with. And Brian pointed out a great number of them to me over the years. But like I am like unbelievably aware during these moments of what my behaviors are wanting to do. And I'm going to give you examples, okay? So when I am sad, my instinct is to isolate myself.
Yes, it is.
My bound nature's instinct is to go away, is to remove myself from Brian's space because I am affecting him. And by affecting him, I'm making his day bad, and then I feel guilty. So my instinct is to isolate. My second one is I stop eating. When I'm in a bound nature reactive place, I lose my appetite. Yesterday, in both instances, I felt myself wanting to isolate and leave the room.
Yep.
And I actually out loud said to Brian, you know what? Like, I'm going to just sit here on the couch right now, and I'm going to cry, even though what I want to do is I want to go downstairs or I want to leave the house because I feel like I'm causing you stress or strain. Yes. But I know that isolation doesn't serve me. Right. I know that I go into this pattern of like avoiding eating. So I forced myself to go into my normal macro patterns of eating foods. And so I was drinking coffee that I wasn't even enjoying. But I know that it's an avoidant pattern that keeps me stuck longer. Right? So those are just 2 examples from yesterday. But if you're aware of those behavioral attributes that happen when you're in that state, you can choose not to act from them.
JJ does it again, says, and learn your language. So basically what JJ's saying, they say, there you go. There's an example of another one of our 4 pillars. As an automatic cosmetic change to the situation. So JJ, well sourced. Our language speaks to us in 4 ways. Our self-talk, so our thoughts, our emotional feelings, our physical feelings, and our behaviors. And those are the 4, and we teach that in BCAP. And listen to what Carrie just said there. She heard herself telling herself things like that. So the self-talk. She emotionally felt sad, right? Physically, she had a headache. And behaviorally, she wasn't enjoying her coffee, didn't feel like eating, wanted to get away from me and get downstairs, which is something she never does on a Sunday morning, right? We have to become intimate with how we speak to ourselves in all of those 4 different ways. Yeah. Okay, now, I was never a sad kind of guy. I was more of an angry kind of guy. Right. Okay? So here's something. I think about Christine Batista, who's watching right now, Sassy Pants. I think about her often when I talk like this because she's mastered this. Okay, so listen carefully. I'd get noisy. I'd wake up angry and frustrated, and I would start connecting it to we're never going to be successful, and a myriad of other old stories of mine, right? So what happened? I would get noisy. What does that mean? Remember? And why would I do that? Because I want her to react. Right. Because I think well, she knows I'm pissed, and she's not saying anything. So I was begging her to react. That's the first thing I do. Then she'd react, meaning she'd say, babe, is everything okay? And what would I do? I'd snap. Does it sound like everything's okay? Noisy into snapping. I get the response I wanted. She'd finally fucking talk to me. Right. But then I'd snap at her. And then as soon as I would snap, that was like the straw breaking. Because then I'd go into a tirade. I would vent and blame. I would yell, I would scream, it'd be Carrie's fault, that guy's fault. I would vent and blame. And then, who knows how long that would last for, but eventually I'd feel very bad. I'd feel so guilty, and I'd curl up in her arms and I'd cry. And I'd apologize. And as soon as I felt her defenses were down, and she was actually allowing me in again as opposed to self-preserving, and she was being sweet, the rage would come back inside again, and I'd go back to noisy. And then snappy. And then venting and blaming, and then apologetic. And that could last for days. For days. That was about 5-7 years ago. I don't do that at all anymore. Look, I've changed a lot.
I don't know the last time.
One of the reasons I brought that up is to say, look how far I've changed. You're feeling sad today, you're feeling lost today, you're feeling you don't know how to deal with a coworker today. Look what I used to do. For days, that would be my cycle. I'd put my wife in this spin cycle. And now, I don't know, when's the last time I got actually really mad? It's been months upon months upon months.
No idea.
It's just not me anymore. So that's the first reason I brought it up. The second reason I brought it up is what JJ said, learn your language. My friends, when I decided to realize that noisy would lead to snapping, would lead to venting and blaming, would lead to apology, and the cycle would start again, guess what I did? When every fiber in my body wanted me to go, I wouldn't. I decided to own the space. When every fiber in my body wanted me to snap at Carrie, I wouldn't. I owned the space. The stimulus, snap at her, snap at her, snap at her. But before I reacted from there, I said, no, I'm not going to. And I'd leave the room if I had to. I'd go for a walk. I'd come back. And the rage to want to snap and vent would be gone.
Yeah.
That's called owning your space. So if your history is that every time you get riled up, like Sassy Pants Basista says, she'd work 100 hours a week. Okay, so you know what you do? Now you recognize that's a reactionary behavior from you, don't do it. You post on Facebook about how your life is over and how pissed you are. Now that you recognize that's reactionary behavior, don't do it. The more you gain ground on owning that space between stimulus and response or reaction, the better you get at it. And my friends, within weeks to months, it's gone. You've owned it to such a level, it stops being present. So we have words that are like, oh, that sounds like a horrible, like, what an impossibly serious cycle to break. It's way fucking easier than you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to listen carefully to how you talk to yourself,